Hello everyone. So I'm welcoming all of you again to our e-learning portal. So we are basically discussing the session on function, in which we have seen like how we can use functions. So let's quickly discuss some more parts about function. We have discussed how we can use the function, the def keyword, and how we can pass arguments in a function. So let's move forward to our next agenda for the functions. So our today's agenda, guys, is the variable arguments, like how we can pass variable arguments in a function. Then we will going to see the return statements in a function, like how we can return the values from the function. And we're also going to see the yield statement and some examples on that so that we will get a better idea how we can use these parts. So let's first of all quickly discuss about the theoretical part and then we'll move further here. So let me just open the notes. Yes, guys. So we are basically going to discuss about the variable arguments. So guys, in the earlier part we have discussed how we can pass arguments value in a function. So let's suppose uh, here I'll just create a shape like this. Let's suppose this is a function now. Now this function can take argument. So inside that we have created some arguments. Let's say two arguments for the addition. Let's say this is the argument number one. Just a moment, guys. Yeah. Let's suppose this is the argument number one, and again this will be the argument number two. This will be the argument number two here. Now let's suppose if I'm doing the addition and I'm passing two values, it will accept the two values, it will do the addition. But let's suppose if someone is saying, I don't know how many values can come. It can be one, it can be two, it can be three, it can be four. So now when we don't know how much arguments can be given by the user in a function, then we cannot say that I will define two arguments or three arguments. So in that case, we have to define the variable arguments. Now in Python, in variable arguments, we have two options. Either we can use the star or we can use a double star. Now the star means variable arguments in which we don't know the number of values. That will be star. The star. Now talking about a double star. Double star means we will provide the value and the name of the argument, just like the name and age which we are giving. So in that part I have provided the age to be 23. Like if I'm passing the name and age, the name and value of the argument, then that is called a keyword argument. And if I'm passing only the values, then that is called a variable argument, which can be denoted by the single star. So for denoting these type of parts, we can write like def function, or let's say add. I don't know how many values it will take, so I'm just using a star value, which means I don't have any idea how many values can be there. And then here I can write a lot of stuff, whatever I want inside a function. And generally for a keyword argument, I can write like def details. Again, I don't have any idea how much argument it will take with the name, so I'm writing like this data, and I can print the data here like this. So let's quickly see the examples of them. Although the keyword arguments are not so much used, but yes, the variable arguments are there, like how we can use that part. So guys, right now I'm on my Python and let's do that part here. So I'm just opening a new file of Python. And here let me just create that part. So if I'm defining here def add, which is a like addition for the part, here I can create like n1 n2 and I can print addition is n1 plus n2. So it will add these values. Let's check it out. So if I call the add with two values, let's say 10, 20, it will add that value. Let's check this for once and then we'll see the variable argument. So I can save it on my documents. Yeah, function 2. I'll just pass a value that is. Here you can guys see that the output is 30, which is perfect. Now, if I want to pass three values, so now you can see it can also take two values. How we can pass three values? So when we don't know the number of arguments which can come there, I will say instead of using the n1, n2, we'll use star val. Star means we don't know how many arguments will be there, and val is the name in which the all values will be stored. Now here instead of addition, first of all I want to see the value. So I will say values are, because we don't know how many values are there. So values are the val. Now remember, at the time of denoting the part, we have to use that star. But when we are printing, we need not to define that star sign. Similarly here, I can say for doing the addition, now if it is two values, I can say n1 plus n2, but it is now only val. How we can do the addition? So I will use the sum function, which will do the sum of all the values which will come inside the val. Now I don't know how many values will become there, but yes, it will take all the values. So now if I run this code, you can see it is saying the first time the value is 10, 20 and addition is 30. The second time the values are this and addition 67. So it's working very fine and you can see the output accordingly. So this is the way how we can create the variable arguments and how we can accept it and print the values. So now guys, let's have a look on the keyword arguments, how we can pass a double star value, the keyword arguments, we can say that part. So for that I will create a function, let's say dev details. I don't know how much data it will take, so I'm using double star. Now here, now I'll just print details. So details are data. That's it. Now if I write details like this, I have to pass the name of the argument and the value also. Like in this part, I'm only passing the value of the argument. Now I have to pass the name and value, like name equals to Amit, age equals to 23, gender equals to male. Now I am passing three values for Amit details. Similarly, if I again write details, I am passing name equals to Rahul, gender equals to male, weight equals to 67.4. Now it's up to you what particular values you want to give, you can give it. It will automatically take this part. Now it's not recommended that these are the only arguments which will be taken by that. It's up to you what particular argument you want to define, you can define it, you can define the value and that will work accordingly. So here let's try to see the output first of all. So now guys you can see for the first time the name is Amit, the age is 23, the gender is male. Second time name Rahul, gender male with 67.4. So whatever the data you will give, it will work accordingly. Now this is the beauty of using the variable arguments. It can accept any kind of value, like it can be variable, it can be one value, it can be two value, the name can be anything. Now guys, let's have a discussion about the return statement. What is return statement? Why we use that? What is the use of that? So let's first quickly discuss about the theoretical part of the return statement, guys. So let's suppose guys here, just take an example. Let's suppose I have created a function which is doing the addition. So let's start with the practical way. That will give you a better idea. So what I'll do here is, uh, I will just say that, okay, here I have to create a function which will either give me the addition of two numbers. So I'll say def add, which will take two values. It will print addition is a plus b. Now this function will do the addition of two numbers. That is fine. And let's suppose I have one more function which will take a number and it will check that this number is even or not. So I'm just giving a function name, let's say is even. It will take a number and I'll say if that number is divisible by 2, you have to print even, else you have to print odd. So there are two functions. First function is doing the addition of two numbers, and second function is checking that the number is even or not. Now guys, here if I will call the add function with value 10 comma 23, it will do the addition. Let's check it out. And we all know the output also, that will be 33. It's perfect, it's giving me 23. Now I want to check the even odd, so I can say is even is my function, and I want to check that 23 is even or not. Let's check it out. Although 23 is an odd number, we all know that. Let's check with the output also. It is giving odd. Now my question is, if I want to check that number which is coming from the addition function, the result of that addition will be checked that whether it is even or not. So the problem here is we have done the addition of two numbers, but we have not stored this value anywhere. So if I'm not storing that value, how I can pass that value to someone? Which means, let's suppose here I have a function. I have this function. This function is taking some argument. It will do some calculations, and then it is printing that value. Now I have another function which want this value. So how this value will be given to that function? Because I have not stored that value anywhere. I'm just printing that value. So what I will say is just return that value from that function. So when let's suppose if I am giving you a value, you will accept that value. Now if you are returning some value to me, I will also accept that value in some variable. So that value will be stored in some variable. Now that variable can be passed to some another function. This function can do some another part. Similarly, this chain can be do in a further process. Which means I have given you a file, you have do some changes in the file, then you have returned that file to me. Now I will pass that return file to someone else. They will work on them. Now they will return some another value to me. Now I will pass that value again to someone. So that is a basic work of the. So guys, yeah. So let's talk about the return statement which we are talking here. It's like first of all, the value will become in some function. Now if the function want to return that value inside from that function, and at that time we can use a return statement. So let's see the practical implementation of that, and then we will see like where we are using that part. So here what I'll do here is let me just create the addition function again because that will give a more relevance. So what I'll do here, I'll just create an add function. Here you can see like that add, which will take two numbers, let's say A and B. I'll say instead of printing the addition, what you will do, you will return the value that is equal to. Now here you can say I'm not using any print statement. So when I call that function, let's say 10, 20 or whatever the value we want to put, this function will be passed to that argument A and B. And after that, we are not returning, we're just returning that value, we're not printing it. So you can see it will not give me any output. So let's think about that. I have given you two values. Now you have done the addition and returned that addition value to me. Now it is my responsibility to print that value. It's not yours responsibility because you have returned that value. So what I will say now here is, okay, if this function is returning something, then I have to store that value. So what I will do here is, I will say, when I am calling this function will return the value and I will store that value in a variable. Let's say arrays. Just like when I am passing value 10 and 20, it is storing the value in A and B. Now, if this function is returning a value, I will store it in a variable arrays. And now I will print the value arrays here. Let's check it out. What value is stored in arrays? So now guys, here you can see the output which is coming as 30. So now what we have done, we have just returned a value, and when we are calling the function, we are accepting that return value in a variable and then printing it directly on the string. So this is the way of returning a value. And what is the benefit of that? Now, if I want to check that added value, that it is even or odd, we can pass that value because we have stored it in a variable res. In the previous part, you can see we have used the print statement, so we have not stored that value. Now here, if I have an even function, which will take a number, I would say if that number is divisible by 2, then you have to print even, else you have to print odd. Now let me just paste it here as a bottom. And now I will just use that even function. I'll call that even function with which value? With this res value, because res is the value which is stored as the addition. So now if I run this code, you can see the addition also, which is 30, and 30 is even number. And you can see, like, if I change that 10 and 20 to, let's say, 10, 21, and now I am passing 10 and 21, the total output will be, I hope that will be basically 31. So the result should be odd. Let's check it out. So I just run this code. Run module. Okay. And here you can see 31. So this is the way how we can use the functions in the codes and how the return statement is working. Now here we will get one more thing, like what return function is doing. What is return statement is doing. Return is returning the value. So let's take an example, one more example in the notes. Let's suppose I have a function here. Here's the function block. Here I have one line, second line, third line, and after that with a green line we have a return statement. With a green line we have a return statement. And then we have some other lines. So you can think for that part, like after returning the value, after this line will execute. We return the value. After returning the value, are we inside the function or outside the function? Like let's suppose you go on a shop and you have just given some list of items and some money for that amount, and the shopkeeper return you some value. Now after return value, after the shopkeeper have given you the particular items, you will leave that shop, because after that you don't have any work on that shop. Your work is done. So similarly, after return the function will terminate, because after that we don't have any options. Okay, like I have given you a file, you have done some work, you have returned that file to me. Now I will go somewhere else. There's no point between me and you as of now after the return of the statement. So basically, like when we use the return statement will terminate the function. Like, let me just show you how. Let's suppose in this function, in this add function, I'm writing print before return. After return, I will write print after return. So now, as you can see, I'm calling the add function. So let's see, the before return will come, the after return will come or not. So here you can see, if I run this code, it is only giving me before return, because after return the function will be terminated. So whatever the thing which is written after the return statement will not be executed, which means you can only return one value from the function. Like, let me just show you. Let's suppose here I have a function def out, and now I'm saying return hello and then return hi. So I'm returning two values. Now I will call out. It is returning a value, so I will store it in a variable, let's say res, and print the value of res. So here we know, like if this function, if this statement will execute, our function will get terminate. Terminate. Let's check it out. Now here you can see the output, which is hello. So we are not able to get high, which means we can only return a single value from the function. But if you want to return multiple values, how I can return multiple values from the function? So for returning multiple values, we can use the yield statement. When we want to return multiple values, we can use the yield statement. How we can use that part? Instead of writing return, I will write yield. I will write yield. Now here Instead of writing the result directly, because we know like we are using yield, which means it will return multiple values. Now, if I have multiple values, how I can print multiple values? We all know that. Like when we have to repeat something, we have to use loop because there are multiple statements we have to print. So what I will say, I'll use for I in that res. Now, what is res? Res is the variable which is storing all the values which is coming from yield. Now, for I in res, we will print the value of I. Let's check it out. You can see hello and hello. So when you want to return multiple values, at that time you should use the yield statement. And when you want to print all the values from the yield statement, you have to use the loop for I in whatever the variable name you have. So you may have like two values for return. You may have like three values for return like this. So whatever the value you will return, if you are using that loop, it will print all the values. That is also known as generator in Python. So this is like a very you can say important question: what is generator? How we can achieve that? What is the use of yield? These are some basic questions which can be asked there. So this is the work how we can use the yield statement, how we can use the return statement, what is the use of return statement, when it will be terminated, and like how we can pass the returned value to some another functions, and also the variable arguments, how we can work on that. So we have learned all these parts in this session. So guys, let's go back to our agenda, in which we have to first of all cover the variable arguments, in which we have seen how we can use the single star also and the double star. What is the use of both of them? And after that, we have seen the return statement. I'll not say it is a function. It is used inside function. So it's like a return statement inside a function. How we can use the return, how we can return a value. And also after that, we have seen the yield statement, how the yield statement will work, how we can return the multiple values. And we have seen the examples on each of them. So this is the for this session, guys. Like we have done all the parts. Now we have a thank you session. So like feel free to share your feedback and any suggestions, guys, you have for the improvement. And if you have any questions or doubts, don't hesitate to ask. You can leave your question in the comment section. We will definitely dare to help. And also, guys, I recommend you to do some practice on the return statements and also the yield statement. The key topics which are very useful from the interview point of perspective or any assessments or assignment kind of perspectives, the return statement will definitely ask in each interviews. Also the yield statement, not the syntax, I will not say that they will use so much, but yes, how the yield statement will work, what is the particular syntax for that. Also you should have an idea of variable argument, how we can take the variable arguments, how we can print the values accordingly. So please do the practice on that and like use some more questions, do some more questions on Zoom. Okay, guys, then bye bye. Take care. Have a nice day.